This everyone here this morning, isn't it good to be a Christian?
Amen.
There was a Chinese woman who had lost her son. She was very devastated by the loss and couldn't find any comfort. She went to one of the men in the community, a very wise man, and he said, what I want you to do is I want you to go from house to house and find a home where there's no grief and no sorrow, and return to me and I'll help you with this struggle. And she came back after several days and she said, I feel really guilty because no matter where I go, there's sorrow and there's grief and there's pain. All of us go through struggles. All of us deal with burdens in life. All of us deal with painful situations. Sometimes it may be things revolving around our family or our health. It might be hurricane. Satan's after us. There's lots of things that come into our lives, and some of them are major things, and some of them are maybe things that we're able to handle a little better than others. But the reality is that in all of our lives, we deal with being broken and spilled out. Job wrote, in Job, it says in chapter 14, verse 1, mortals are man, born of woman, are few of days and full of trouble. What a statement. Few of days, that's true. Life is fast. It goes by really quick. And full of trouble. Full of burdens, full of difficulties, full of things that we don't really want to deal with, and we want to move from the point of the storm to the point where there's some calm, where there's some rest. I was thinking about storms and calm and dealing with burdens, and you already know I have a weird mind, right? Amen. So I'm sitting there thinking about this sermon, and I'm thinking about burdens. And all of a sudden, I keep thinking about the Roadrunner and the Coyote. Yeah, right. And I thought, both of them had burdens, right? The Roadrunner had the burden of the Coyote, always trying to interfere with his life and destroy him, right? And the Coyote had a burden that no matter what he did, no matter how hard he tried, he failed. And if you think about the story, that's the way it ends. It's just the burdens and the storms, and it goes on and on and on and on. And the good news for us is we have promises from God that there's always rest on the other side. That there's not always going to be a storm continually. That there can be deliverance. There is a way out. He always provides a way of escape. All things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and been called according to His purpose. When you look at the book of Judges and you see the times of punishment and difficulty they brought on themselves, the time of peace and the time of rest is much bigger. But as we think about the storms and as we think about getting to the calm, the Bible's pretty clear that there's some specific ways we deal with burdens in our lives. Sometimes we share them, sometimes we shoulder them, and sometimes we shed them. And in Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, it says, bear one another's burdens, fulfilling the law of Christ. Sometimes we share burdens, and in the Greek, the picture there is that this is a big crate that you can't move by yourself that takes more than one person. There are some problems in life that we need other people to help us with. And aren't we thankful for people that we have in our lives that we can share burdens with? I was thinking about this, and I know that a lot of times I'll give Fritz a hard time and make fun of his age and call him old fossil and stuff like that. But I've always appreciated Gay and Fritz, but since becoming an elder, we have kind of had a new relationship. Because you can't do that alone. You have to share that load. You have to share those burdens. Whether it's other people's burdens, whether it's personal burdens, you have to share the load. It's something you can't handle on your own. And Fritz started coming up here. Once a week he comes up and we sit in office and talk about things. And the other day I was dealing with a lot of different stuff, and I get out of my car at the bank, and I think providentially Fritz pulls up at the same time. And there's an appreciation for that relationship, because it's something you couldn't do on your own. It's something, as iron sharpens iron, you sharpen each other, and you know that there's another person there to get input and to think things through. Justin and I were friends for a long time. We just liked each other. He became a Christian, and now he's someone that I share burdens with. I'll tell him something I want him to pray for, or that I'm struggling with. And there was a sense of transparency before he became a Christian, but even deeper than that now. We are to be burden bearers. Bear, one of the 24 or so one another passages is to bear each other's burdens. One thing you do with your burdens is you share them. But sometimes with your burdens you shoulder them. A little later on in Galatians, Paul says in verse 5, "For each one should shoulder his own burdens." So at one point he's talking about crate problems. In this one, the Greek word really means like a backpack. The teenagers aren't going to go to school tomorrow with their backpack dragging on the floor acting like it's 1,000 pounds, right? It's something that they can shoulder. With all the books they put in today, maybe it's getting a little more difficult, but it's a burden you can deal with on your own. There's some burdens you handle yourself. Dee Dee has a new burden. I get up early. Sometimes Brendan's coming in late. There's noise made when people are moving around the house. So she got earplugs, and she's shouldering that burden alone. That's a simple one she has to deal with. Anyway, there's some things that we can handle on ourselves, right? Or when I used to talk in my sleep, she would tickle my mustache, I'd slap myself in the face and wake up. She was bearing that burden alone, right? But some burdens, to find rest, we share. In the Old Testament, in Psalm 55, verse 22, it says, Cast your cares on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He's not going to remove the problem. He's going to sustain you. He's going to give you the ability to stand up through it. He will never let the righteous be shaken. I mean, what a powerful verse of Scripture. When we cast our cares on the Lord, and last Sunday night we talked about the things we're to do with worry in the New Testament. One is to cast our anxieties on Him. Also, we're to not be anxious about anything, but in everything with prayer and petition, present our request to God. And then what Jesus says is, don't worry about this life, what you're going to eat or what you're going to wear. Look at the lilies of the field, look at the birds. God's going to take care of you. And He lays down 3 principles. Trust in God, seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and live one day at a time. And here, with our burdens, we are to cast our cares on God, because He cares about us. And then Jesus is teaching people who, many of them, from a religious standpoint, are burdened. Those Jews, they could never do what the law required. They could never be good enough. They tried to keep the commandments, but they would fall and they would fail. And Jesus, in some ways, is talking to those people that are burdened down by all those rules and laws and the things that men and tradition had put on the backs of those who were listening to Him. And He says, come unto me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke. And then, we already read the passage, so in this text, Jesus has given us an invitation. Do we accept His invitation? First of all, is the invitation itself. Come unto me, give you rest. That's the invitation. Do you want rest? You got to go to Jesus. He stands at the door and knocks. You got to open the door. You've got to surrender yourself to Jesus if you want the rest. When you go through difficulty, Scripture says plainly, humble yourselves before the Lord, and in due time He will lift you up. He's not going to lift you up unless you humble yourself. Come unto Christ. The invitation is, come to me for rest. That's the invitation. Who are the guests? Who's the invitation to? Those who are weary and burdened. If a person is weary, that means they're working. We have passages say anyone who lives a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. If you serve Jesus, you're going to get tired. If you're a human being, you're going to be burdened. Jesus is offering it to people who had a load on their backs. It was difficult. All of us can feel that in our lives, can't we? I mean, sometimes more than others. Like every time, I think the last time I went to Lithuania, the air conditioner went out the day before I left. And this week, all kinds of stuff was happening. And I finally got through with the camp curriculum for the camp. And I finally got through with the job description I was writing for the missionaries. Got all that behind me. The big cloud was over. I felt like I could rest a little bit. And then water starts coming out from under the sink in the kitchen, right? And it's a minor thing, but it's like it never ends, right? Sometimes, especially when you need it to end. It just keeps on going. Jesus' invitation from all levels is for us. And what about the host? He's gentle and humble in nature. He's meek, power under control. He's the one we read about in those stories where He calms the storm and drives out the demons from the possessed man and raises up Jairus' daughter and heals a woman with the issue of blood. And you've heard me preach sermons, when man can't, Jesus can. He has that power. But He's also gentle. The bruised reed He doesn't break. He knows how to take me through what I need to go through. But you've got to trust in Jesus. Fully trust in Jesus if you want Him to give you the rest. And He's humble in heart. No better person to take us through what we need to go through. I think what's important for us to get from this text is a yoke in the Old Testament is a symbol of subjection or service. To take the yoke of Jesus is to become His disciple and keep His commands. If you want rest, you've got to take up His yoke. A yoke was to balance the weight. You see pictures of guys back in the 1800s or whatever plowing through fields and they've got the yoke on. Sometimes they put it on animals, but it balances the load out so it's more manageable, right? If you want to take His yoke, you have to become His disciple. Jesus said you can't come out a disciple unless you deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow me. I've got to be Lord of all, or I can't be Lord at all. You've got to count the cost and make sure you're willing to make the commitment. You have to be a disciple. You just don't get rest because you want rest, and you don't just get rest because you go to Jesus. You get rest when you become a committed disciple and say, I'm going to live for you, not for myself. I surrender. I'm going to give it all to you. And you keep His commands. Some people want the rest, but they don't want to do what Jesus tells them to do. Sometimes Jesus requires us to sacrifice, to change, to be, maybe to do things we don't want to do. Jesus understands that. Father, let this cup pass from me. Not my will be done, but yours. That's what He calls us to. It must be remembered that a yoke was put on a person or animal to make the burden easier. If the burden was heavy, the yoke did not lighten it. Jesus saying that belief in Him and obedience to His commandments are delightful. It would bring joy and peace if we do it. When Jesus gives us something to do, we have to realize we will have success. In the Old Testament, Joshua said, if you keep His commandments, you will be successful. God didn't give us this word just to keep us busy. It's going to make our lives successful. Well, we got to believe that. But we have to shed the burden. That means we have to let it go. And sometimes that's our biggest problem. Sometimes we share burdens. Sometimes we share burdens we don't really should be sharing with people. Sometimes we share burdens that we ought to be dealing with ourselves. But sometimes we share them. Sometimes we shoulder them. But sometimes we just got to go to God and let go. There was a guy that was walking down a dirt road carrying a big old heavy sack of potatoes. And it was getting heavier and heavier. You could see the sun was beating down on him. Sweat was rolling down his cheeks. You could tell that he was tired from carrying the sack of potatoes down the road. And a truck comes by. And the guy says, "You want to ride?" And he says, "Yeah." And he gets in the back of the truck. And he leaves the potatoes on his shoulder. And they're going down the road. And he still won't put his sack of potatoes down. He's still hanging on to the load. And finally the driver said, "You can put the potatoes in the bed of the truck. Relax. Take it easy." He said, "No, man, I appreciate you giving me a ride, but I don't expect you to take these potatoes in the truck too." I know, it's silly, right? But think about what you do with your burdens. Sometimes you go to Jesus, but you hold on to them. You won't let go of them. And sometimes what's important is for us to shed them, to get rid of our burdens and to take on what Jesus wants to give us. You have to leave yours and be consumed and obsessed and radical about what Jesus wants you to do. You'll forget about your burdens when you take on His. And His are not cumbersome. His are not heavy. We're told that all throughout the New Testament. We have to believe that. I mean, we experience in life sometimes when we have to hold on to something and when we have to let go of something. I remember when I first started water skiing. If you want to stay up on the water and you want to do tricks and you want to go through the wake and you want to do all that stuff, cool experience, a lot of fun, right? Makes your back a little sore, but it's fun. If you want to stay up, you got to hold on, right? You can't water ski if you let go. But if you fall and you don't let go, what's going to happen to you? You're going to suck up half the lake and you're going to go way under, right? When you start to go down, you got to let go. There's a time to hold on and share. There's a time to hold on and shoulder. And there's a time to let go. There's a father who was in his truck and he was driving through the yard and his son thought he would get a free ride, so he ran and jumped on and held on to the bumper. And he fell down and the truck was dragging him, and the father heard him screaming and stopped, and he got out and the boy was still holding on to the bumper. And he said, "I have to ask, why didn't you let go?" I mean, sometimes we hold on when we need to be letting go. The good news for all of us is, just like the song says, burdens are lifted at Calvary. I mean, we've been talking about burdens, but the greatest burden of all is the burden of sin. It's the burden that separates us from God, and Jesus paid the price for that burden. And if you're in Christ, confess and repent and make things right. If you're not in Christ, believe, repent, confess, and be baptized. But God has borne that burden for us. May we have the wisdom to know when to share, when to shoulder, and when to shed as we stand and sing.